Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, alongside James Gisante and Danny Hernandez. We have a lot to get to today, so we're going to dive right into it, starting with the 2-year anniversary special of AEW Dynamite. Obviously, the biggest thing to come out of this episode was the return of one Hangman Adam Page during the Casino Ladder match. That match also included Pac, Andrade, Lance Archer, Jon Moxley, Orange Cassidy, and Matt Hardy. A lot of big bumps in this match, a lot of cool spots. And Hangman with the return win. James, I love this match. I mean, I'm a big Hangman guy, and I thought everyone bumped their asses off, so I absolutely loved it.
First off, I love a good ladder match. Who doesn't? They had top tier talent in this match. I never thought any of the men already announced were going to win. I was pretty confident it was going to be the Joker. But the question was, who was going to be the Joker? We had seen lots of teases throughout the week, lots of people from different companies, lots of people within the company joking, oh, I'm going to be the Joker. I don't think anybody fully expected it to be Hangman. We all expected, we didn't hear anything about the birth of his child, which is why he had taken all this time off. But the moment he came into the match, the moment his music hit, the moment he came out through the back, didn't matter who was in the match. The entire arena was behind Hangman. It was such an incredible return. It was such an incredible pop. You have two of the biggest baby faces in the company in Moxley and Orange Cassidy, two of the most over acts in the company. And fans did not care about them the moment Hangman came in. And I think that speaks to how much he's been missed and to how invested in his story people are. The match itself was brutal. Some truly scary spots, stuff that my body hurts thinking about these spots. Andrade took a nasty fall onto the ladder outside. Hangman, I know this spot was your spot of the match, Nick. Hangman and Pac going through the table was scary. And let's give it up for Matt Hardy for, at his age, doing leg drops from ladders through tables onto the outside. Just every man delivered tonight.
Yeah, that Hangman spot, I didn't even think it was the best spot of the match, but it was definitely like the one I cringed the most because Hangman took that right on his knees. And as someone with bad knees, oh, no, just no. But, I did find it interesting. You said, you thought the Joker was going to win. I thought Moxley might have been the only other guy who could have won. I thought he made the most sense out of the guys who were announced. But even then, when Hangman came out, they were booing the hell out of him, especially towards the end there when they were both on the ladder. It was clear, like you said, Hangman took over that match. He was the guy. Everybody wanted to see him win more than Orange, more than Moxley, more than anybody in that entire match. And it just became his match.
I won't let Danny speak, but I just wanted to note that every man in the match has had a title match with Kenny since Kenny's been champion, and they've all lost at some point. Kenny defended the belt against Archer. Kenny defended in the triple threat against Orange and Pac. Kenny won the title from Moxley, and Kenny didn't have an AEW title match with Andrade, but he had the AAA title match with Andrade in at Triple Mania. I guess the only person he hasn't had a title match with is Matt Hardy, but nothing against Matt, but I think he was the one guy that nobody was expecting to win this match. He was sort of the odd man out for a lot of people.
Matt was in that match to continue to progress the storyline with Orange.
Exactly.
And not to mention, too, a lot of those guys also had a lot of history with each other. You have Pac and Andrade, you have Orange and Pac, and then you have Pac and Hardy a little bit, and then Orange and Hardy, obviously. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. And then Moxley and Archer.
Yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of the big talking points of the match. I would just like to add on that I've really enjoyed Cassidy and Pac's interactions in the beginning of the match. It felt like they picked up right where they left off, and I want this to be just one of the longest running eternal rivalries in AEW. Like, I want them to, not be in the ring with each other for like 8 months, and then sometime next year, like summer or something, they interact again, because they just have it. Like a lot of people try to do Orange Cassidy's shtick back to him in the match, to interact them, but it doesn't. No one does it better than Pac, because he's just a guy who's so good at taking himself so seriously. So him in that role is so perfect. I don't think you could write it better with any of the people they have on their roster. But back to the rest of the match, insane spots. I love ladder matches. I'm not big on putting them on TV because I don't like a commercial break in a ladder match. So part of this did feel not rushed, but like nothing had time to breathe. Like everything was going like at a mile a minute, and it was good. A lot of it was good because of that. But like some of these spots, some of these insane spots, like the Andrade spot, the Deadeye off the ladder, like they did not have the time they needed to breathe because it's TV. But that doesn't take away from the match. It's just like why I personally wouldn't put ladder matches on TV where you're going to have commercial breaks. But great match. And yeah, everyone was over. Well, to a degree. No, I'm not trying to start, James.
Here we go.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
Here we go.
No, that's all I say about it. Just like that didn't have like the best reaction. That's it. Not like a huge slight on him, just how it was. But like when Hangman came out, like you guys said, the energy just changed and went from like, this is so cool, we're getting a ladder match on TV, to, oh my God, we're getting a huge story beat on TV. And because AEW crowds are aware enough to realize that type of thing, like they know, oh, we're getting something more than just a lot. Because at the end of the day, like this match is bigger than the brass ring ladder match. As fun as that match was, it was just for a title shot that Scorpio Sky had on TV, and then that was it. Like, and then we were done with it. But this is a major story beat, and the crowd realized it because, yeah, like you guys said, the energy changed. Great match, great finish. Just like I said, my only pet peeve was ladder matches on TV, but that's it. Other than that, all good. James?
So I have to say, my favorite match of all time is a TV ladder match. My favorite match of all time is The Undertaker defending the Undisputed Championship against Jeff Hardy on Raw in that ladder match, because as a kid, oh man, that was just the coolest friggin' thing in the world to see Jeff Hardy. But beyond that, you made a good point that I did want to acknowledge with the moment, the story, and how the crowd handled it. I always got to give it to AEW crowds for knowing how to be part of the show and not hijacking. I think we've only had one somewhat contentious crowd for an AEW show that I can think of. And it was actually last week at Rochester. Yeah, the what chants are something that need to go away, but well, that's a long rant in itself. But beyond just how the crowd reacted to it, you're right. This was a big moment for the story that AEW is telling. And now where do we go from here? Because Hangman is, by all intents and purposes, the number one contender. But the story is clearly following Kenny versus Bryan Danielson. So do we have a triple threat brewing? Do we have Daniel Bryan? Do we have Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Adam Page? Or does Hangman wait his turn after Bryan? Or does Bryan wait his turn after Hangman? And I think the big fun question that everyone is more emotionally invested in, where does the Dark Order fit into all of this? I watched the first commercial break for Roads to the Top, and that question came up. Is Hangman going to reunite with the Dark Order? We'll see. But I think there's a lot of ground to cover, and I'm not ready for the Kenny Omega title reign to end, but it feels like we're getting ready to exit that ramp sooner than later.
I think that's a great point, and it is something to ponder. Personally, if I had to guess, I'm going to say that Hangman is going to beat Kenny at Full Gear so that Brian and Kenny can continue their feud without the title involved, so we can have a winner. Because I'm torn on that match. I'm just going to be a bias, and I want Brian to win. So I'd rather that not be for the title, to not muddy up, the whole title situation. And Kenny's reign is going on. It's going to be a year in December. It kind of flew by, but it was still a good reign. So I'm okay with it continuing, but I'm also okay with it ending at this point.
Yeah, James, I have to agree with you that I think they purposely left a lot of questions unanswered in that commercial break interview they had with Hangman. So I'm very interested to see where all that goes. Obviously, they couldn't answer all of them in the 30 seconds in between the commercial break. But I did find it interesting. Hangman didn't seem to realize that Adam Cole was in AEW when Shivani brought it up. So I found that kind of weird. And Danny, to your point, I do have to agree with you. I thought the match did need a little bit more time, and I think that was my only little nitpick with the whole thing. But I mean, if that's your only nitpick out of that entire match, I mean, so be it. Other than that, it was great. And James, even JR brought that. He alluded to his "Make Yourself Famous" kid call from your Jeff Hardy match there. So a lot of ground was covered in that match. All of it just good.
And fun part to note on your note about Hangman and Adam Cole. Hangman was Adam Cole's last Ring of Honor match before going over to NXT. And I don't know if he was his last indie match, period, but he was definitely his last match in Ring of Honor. And there is history between the two. Hangman didn't replace Adam Cole, but he didn't rise to prominence until Cole left the Bullet Club.
The other big of the news of the day today was the introduction of the TBS title for the women's division. There's been some speculation a new title was coming. We had been speculating it might be the tag team titles, much to James's dismay. It was not. But a new title into the women's division, probably going to open up a lot for this division here. The tournament has already been announced, a la the TNT championship tournament. So, Danny, what do you think is going to end up happening here now with the new introduction of a title into the women's division?
So I have mixed feelings about this TBS title. I think it is awesome and borderline unprecedented for a women's division to have a mid-card title. That's great. That is fantastic. More wrestling companies should have a mid-card title for the women. It makes sense. I'm not sure if AEW is the right company to have this title, or they're in the right place right now to have this title. They have the roster. They do not have enough star power. They've not made enough stars in the division to hold this title. Because look at all the people we have, the 4 people we have announced so far: Thunder Rosa, Sky Blue, Ruby Soho, Jade Cargill. Aside from Sky Blue, those are 3 people that could be competing for the regular women's title. Jade, I feel like this tournament's made for Jade Cargill. That's my pick, honestly. She's probably going to win it because she's already undefeated. And they don't want her going after the main title, so they probably are just going to give her this one. But all those people could be facing Britt. Who's going to face Britt now? There's no one left. And I don't think they can balance having top-ranked women for this title and for the women's title, because they barely have enough to make contenders for Britt, who wasn't on Dynamite this week, because they probably realized, what do we do next? The only people possibly on her level were Statlander, Thunder Rosa, and technically by record, not by talent, Jade Cargill. And 2 of those 3 are in this tournament, and I'm sure Statlander will be too. So I think this is a really cool thing in terms of an idea, and it's awesome, but I do think this is going to make the women's division somehow end up suffering more, and I think tag titles would have actually been better for variety's sake, as opposed to having a mid-card title for a division that doesn't even have number one contenders for the main title.
I will say, Britt was indeed on Dynamite today. It was a very brief backstage segment with Tony Schiavone where she nicknamed it. Well, she said she wanted the TBS title to be the Cartoon Network title, which I found fantastic. But like, you know, it was a very brief segment. So,
Yeah.
like you said, not a lot of time for the women's champion, but at least she was on the show. Maybe Rio could be Britt's next challenger. I don't know where she is. I don't know what she's been doing. They probably have to build her up a bit in the standings, but I do agree. She doesn't really have much going on right now. So I don't know. James, what do you think?
Oh wait, not to cut off James, but because you just said it, just jogged my memory. Jade Cargill's the number one ranked woman, so she should be the number one contender. But now she's in this tournament. But sorry, James, what are your?
Oh no, I think that was a great point, Danny, and I think they just don't want to put Jade against Britt, which for obvious reasons they shouldn't. Yeah. They're putting her in with Britt is just going to expose Jade. But I do agree with you. I'm happy that there is a mid-card women's title in a major wrestling company. I wish it was the tag titles instead. I think there is way more room to develop the roster with tag teams than there is for a mid-card belt right now. I think they're going to have to rely on some surprise entrants for the tournament to really get people going for it. Right now, it's we already mentioned it. It's Ruby Soho, it's Jade Cargill, it's
Thunder Rosa and Sky Blue.
Jesus. I really don't want it to be Jade, but Jade makes the most sense. And I'm rooting for Jade. It's not even like I've got go away heat with her. I don't think she's ready. I don't think she's ready at all. But I understand them not wanting to put it on Thunder yet. And Ruby just would feel a little too early. I don't know. Like when the TNT title came out, it made sense at the time. You know, they had such a big roster and they couldn't have everyone just going for the world title. There were just people that should be doing something for a title, just shouldn't be going for the world title. So the TNT title made sense. Right now, this TBS title, which I need to say, you couldn't come up with a better title design. Come on. Come on. Anyway,
or at least the original one. It looks the same as the TNT title. Just mix it up a bit.
I like the fact that they're meant to be equal. I like the fact that they're meant to be on the same level. They didn't need to look the same.
Well, I like that it seemed like bigger than the regular women's title that has like the smaller like plates. Yeah. You know, that I liked about it.
I think the funniest aspect to me, and I know I'm just being silly, is that the TBS is the logo of the station. So it's just all lowercase letters. I don't think I've ever seen that on a professional wrestling championship before, lowercase letters on a belt, but whatever. I'm disappointed it wasn't a tag team title. That's what I was really, really hoping for. I think it would have helped the division a lot more. And I agree with you. I don't know if they have the depth for it. They don't have developed talent for this. And maybe this title will be the belt to help develop those superstars, wrong company, those competitors. But I feel like things were a little premature. I think if they had announced the belt closer to them getting on TBS and they had more time to develop some talent that I would have been hot for, but not necessarily to go for the women's title, the world women's title, it would have been better. But I guess they're under time constraints.
Also, you know, I could have been more on board with this if like Thunder Rosa wasn't in this tournament. Why is she not Britt's like number one contender? Like if she doesn't win this, that's another loss. She lost in the triple threat match on Rampage. Like if she doesn't win this tournament, that's another loss on her record. And how much longer are they going to hold off having Thunder Rosa and Britt for the title? Like, I don't know.
I'm a big believer we're going to get the double turn out of Thunder and Britt, which is why they're holding off on it. They've already started to show the signs of Thunder feeling a little entitled, which, I mean, granted, baby faces can feel like they deserve things and they want things without being the heel. But after she lost the Battle Royal to Ruby, she kept saying, it should have been me. I should have won. Like, this was my time. And that just that feels like the seeds are being planted. And like you said, she lost the triple threat against Jade and Nyla, and I think it's just a matter of time. And people want to cheer for Britt, so it's not like people are going to be against that double turn. But I think that's the main reason they're just waiting to capitalize on both of them hitting their peak to switch.
I could see that. I don't want a full double turn because I don't want Britt to fully turn face. I think she should just let Rosa turn and she turns by proxy, but not actually change or turn, because I think the Britt Baker formula works too good as is, and I wouldn't want to mess with it. But yeah, that could be interesting. Rev, I feel like we've, kind of left you out of this for a little while,
Well, I'm sorry. Is this not the same podcast where last week we were discussing the depth of this women's division and how everyone underrates it and how many people they have that could possibly create a women's tag team division? And now all of a sudden, because it's a singles title, oh no, they have no depth and nobody's ready for it. What, guys, we were discussing this last week.
First of all, I need you to simmer down. Just a lot of heat coming at me right now. Second of all, I think, and this is not to disparage any tag team division in any company or any tag team in professional wrestling, but there is a very different dynamic to being ready in a tag team versus being ready as a singles champion. I think that there are lots of women who are capable of taking on the tag team titles, developing as a tag team, and getting me to care about them. But do I think Anna Jay is ready to be the TBS Women's Champion? I'm not sure. Do I think she and Tay Conti could be the tag team champions? Absolutely.
That's a great point, James. First of all, who cares what we said last week? That's a week ago. Like, we're not the same people.
Plans change.
But it's mainly like everything I said. They have the people, but none of them are on TV. So how are we going to all of a sudden care? And I have this problem sometimes with the men's division too. Like, when the Varsity Blondes are number one contenders for the tag titles, but I've never seen them win a match on Dynamite. I don't like that. That's not good. That's not a good way to book the shows. Granted, that same thing happened this week with the Acclaimed, but I'm a hypocrite and I love the Acclaimed, so I'm totally okay with that. But yeah, it's just, there's just not enough, and they don't give them the time, and they consistently are not giving them the time. We get our one women's match a week, and sometimes we get this backstage segment with the women too, and that's it. Now we're gonna have two titles that for two singles titles. That means we're probably only gonna get alternating weeks. Like, we'll get Britt one week, we get the TBS champion the next week. Tag titles offer a different type of match. It's different. You get more people on screen at once, which is basically what James is saying, that you can develop people easier in a tag match or in a tag division. Like I said, I love the idea of a secondary singles title for the women. I don't think their division's ready. I'd love to be proven wrong, though. Don't get me wrong. But we'll see. We'll see if they can get it where they're having good TBS title matches and Britt has credible opponents all at once. If they can strike that balance, because let's be real, they don't really strike a good balance of telling women's stories on the show. We got the Sheeta ones today, which we'll talk about later. But then we didn't get anything else. We got a brief Britt segment and the announcement of the title. Like, they're not good at juggling multiple stories with the women. So I don't have the most faith. As much as I have faith in AEW as a company, it's the only part where I'm a little hesitant to be like, this is amazing.
Is that sufficient, Nick? Is that okay? Did we defend ourselves well enough?
I'm not going to disagree with any of your points, except for the fact that I do think they have the depth. I think they have enough established women who could hold this title to start with. Obviously we've mentioned a few, and then of the four named, I think Thunder Rosa and Ruby Soho could easily take this title to begin with. I do kind of agree with Danny that it feels like this is a little tailor-made for Jade Cargill, at least to make the finals. Whether or not she wins from there is is to be seen, despite the fact she's still a little green. But I think we'll see.
Jade is green.
Oh God.
Usually I'm the one telling bad jokes, but Jesus, James. Anyway,
No, I love
no.
it. No, let's keep talking about
No, he just threw me off for a second. I'm back. So, assuming they go with an 8-woman tournament, I would like to see who the other 4 people are, but I think they definitely have the talent to not only fill out this tournament with a good mix of people who are legitimate contenders for this title and young people like Sky Blue, who can get a good rub being in this tournament. I think the tournament's going to be good. I think they're going to have the people to fill this mid-card area here, as Britt said, where all the quote unquote losers can fight it out below her. And I think it'll be fine. I really do. I think you guys are slightly underestimating the women's division just because they don't get enough TV time, which they definitely do need.
We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
It's possible. If they give them the time, it's possible, but just going based on the track records.
And I think we could all agree we're rooting for this to succeed. It's not that we don't want it to succeed.
Absolutely.
And it's, again, I think Danny said it. AEW has earned a lot of my faith. They've earned a lot of my patience. So I'm willing to wait and see how this plays out. But I guess I'm just more nervous and concerned. Excited, but nervous and concerned.
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, I have to imagine Anna Jay is going to be in this tournament. Ty probably will be too. Yes, Statlander. So is that 7?
But even that goes to a
and
point
maybe
that Danny. Even that goes to a point that Danny said. Why are these women just not going for the women's title? Like when the TNT title was created, that belt was for guys who were either not ready to go for the world championship or couldn't go for the world championship or didn't have the record to go for the world championship. Yeah, Cody won it, but the rest of the men in that tournament, I don't think they were ready for a world title shot. I think any of the women you just listed, they should reasonably be challenging Britt.
Yeah, and I think that, to go back to say something positive about it, I think whoever wins it, if they start doing like the open challenge every week, like they do with the TNT title, and they start bringing in women from other companies and they start doing exciting stuff like that, that'll go a long way in establishing the title. And then maybe we could see some stuff like we saw with like Eddie Kingston coming in or Ricky Starks, where, it was supposed to be a one-off, but they did so well, they end up signing, like these are some of the good things that could come out of this. So to not be completely negative about it, there are a lot of positives that can and probably will come from this.
Yeah, get some younger women, maybe some women from other companies, continue their partnership with NWA. A lot can happen. And talking about the TNT title, it was defended again today. First defense for Sammy Guevara against it's Fish, Bobby Fish. There we go. I knew it was a fish. A lot of fish in the sea. Anyway, we were a little, say, underwhelmed by the announcement last week that Fish would be Sammy's first contender, but I think the match delivered fairly well. I wrote down in my notes, it was better than I thought, but it didn't necessarily hold my attention the entire time. But it was still good. I thought the post match was the bigger story here. American Top Team came out along with Men of the Year, threw a beatdown on Sammy, and then subsequently Fuego, who tried to save him, because that's kind of Fuego's job now, is just to get beat up. But hey, he's got a contract. Good for him. And then Jericho and Hager came in for the save. They were then challenged by Dan Lambert to a 6-man tag next week in Miami with Men of the Year and former UFC heavyweight champion Junior Dos Santos stepping into the ring with Jorge Masvidal at ringside. So a lot went on there. James, what you think about the match and then the post-match stuff and next week's Dynamite?
A lot to unpack. The match itself, like you said, better than I expected it to be, which kind of unfair to Bobby Fish in the first place because he is a solid, strong talent. It's just he never gets over the way the people around him tend to. This match served its purpose. It gave Sammy his first title defense. Sammy looked great. Sammy looked like a champion. And for Bobby's sake, I hope he impressed a lot of people who got to see maybe a little slightly different side of him than what he got to show in NXT. And I'm actually a little disappointed that we didn't see any cross between Fish and Cole tonight. I get that there was just a lot going on and maybe they didn't want to acknowledge the Undisputed Era because it would get fans' hopes up. But if there's no expectations to bringing Bobby in, why not have Cole beat him up afterwards? Like have him and the Elite just knock the shit out of Cole for being a loser afterwards. A total heel thing to do.
We beat the shit out of Fish?
Yeah.
Afterward? Okay.
Yeah. But for the post-match beatdown, I'm hot and cold on the Lambert and top team stuff. I think Lambert is a very annoying heel, which is what he's aiming for. He's doing a great job of it. I just don't know how much he feels like a more like a real life bad guy than a wrestling bad guy. I thought he did a great job of trying to fuck with the fans singing Judas. And like, I think he's been the best heel at doing it so far. Like everyone else just sort of breaks and like lets the fans do it. He just rode through it and was not going to let the fans do it uninterrupted. But again, I don't know if that's necessarily the right move, you know? But regardless of all that, it's good to see the Inner Circle back together again. I feel they've been a little too separate lately. I don't even know why Proud and Powerful wouldn't have come out tonight. But hey, we got 3 of them. In my headcanon now, Fuego is a junior member of the Inner Circle, the same way Cutler and Nakazawa are like young boys for the Elite. He's like their junior member. And yeah, I have more interest in this match tonight than I did last week or the week before. But I think the most exciting thing is Junior Dos Santos. Like that's pretty huge. Danny.
Honestly, you put it perfectly, James. Like almost everything literally everything I wanted to touch on, like you touched on, and more or less what I was going to say. The only thing I slightly disagree with is even though I found it hilarious, you said he's more like a real life villain than a wrestling villain. I think Lambert's great. I think he's doing, and like he grew on me quick because at first I was like whatever about him, but I loved the way he was, because he wasn't talking over the crowd singing Judas. He was just getting jabs in like every few seconds, like so he wasn't stopping them. He was almost like a hype man at a rock concert where he's like he's not overshadowing the people singing. He's just adding on. I thought that was a nice little touch, and that was the only note I really had. You know, like the match was good. Sammy seemed like a star. Mr. Fish was fine, but it was so weird to me, and this is my only takeaway from this. When Jericho and Hager ran down, they hit Jericho's music. Fine, totally normal for wrestling, but they set off his pyro too, and then the music never stopped. The whole beatdown, like they cleared the ring, the music never stopped. Normally, when the person hits the ring, the music stops, and then they play it again whenever the dust is settled. But it just played through the whole time. That was so weird to me. I was just laughing about it. It's not like a big deal, but that's what my mind focused on for that whole time.
It was AEW.
I was gonna say it was Jericho's own personal fight music for the save.
Yeah, it was AEW's version of what happened with Finn and Roman. Like, oh, epic fight scene with music in the background. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. We actually get the win when our music plays. We don't lose to Roman. I mean, we don't lose.
Yeah, just cue Wonder Woman's music and start decking people. Yeah, I got to agree on Lambert too. The man is a heat magnet. Like everything he says, he's getting just booed mercilessly. He got the "shut the fuck up" chant that MJF usually gets. So I'm liking Lambert in AEW. I'm having a good time watching him, despite the fact I don't even necessarily think the Men of the Year need him, but they're getting a really good rub hanging out with all of those MMA stars. And now Junior Dos Santos is stepping in the ring. That is huge, like you said, James. I'm really excited to see him. I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't know what type of wrestling experience he has, like in terms of, professional wrestling and not shoot wrestling within a on a mat in a cage and so on and so forth. So it will be very interesting to see how he does within the squared circle itself.
The only thing, I think Men of the Year do need him because they were floundering before he came along.
Yeah, agreed. I meant more as like a mouthpiece. Like they can talk. Like I agree, they had no heat on them whatsoever in terms of being face or heel. They only got booed because they were facing Darby, and that was pretty much it. Like after that Darby thing, they were flat. So bringing the top team in and having them with Lambert has actually done them a whole lot of good. I do agree there. I just meant like mic skill wise.
Apparently, too, AEW has big plans for Men of the Year. They want Ethan Page and they want Scorpio to really get heat. They have big plans for them. And I'm excited for that. I think Scorpio needed some time away from the SCU stuff to get, I think fans needed to associate him with something else. And Ethan Page is a great talent who I think really got overshadowed from the moment he debuted. And it's unfortunate. But I'm rooting for those two guys to get over. I'm rooting for those two guys to show how good they are. And this is a good way of doing it.
Yeah. Can I add Scorpio Sky to my hypothetical dunk contest from last week? That man's got some hops too. I'm just gonna start. This is gonna be my new running bet. Every time we talk about a guy in the dunk contest, add him to the list. All right. So to start Dynamite tonight, we had the Super Elite consisting of Kenny Omega, Adam Cole, Bebe, and the Young Bucks go up against Jurassic Express, Christian Cage, who is still Impact's champion, by the way, and one Bryan Danielson. This match was pure chaos, a lot of violence. I thought the Super Elite probably got in more of the heavier hits, although Luchasaurus had a great hot tag at one point where he just wiped all of them out. A lot of shenanigans from Cutler and Nakazawa. And the end, two big takeaways from this match for me. One was Danielson had locked in the cattle mutilation on Kenny Omega in the center of the ring. And I don't think he had anywhere to go. And Nick Jackson broke it up with a swanton. So I thought that was interesting. And two, Jungle Boy ate about 5 finishers before he got pinned, which was ridiculous. So at least they're keeping him strong as hell. Danny, what did you think about this opening match? And do you have any other takeaways from it?
Ooh, so I do want to talk about your first note there, because that swanton to break up the cattle mutilation was so like uncomfortable to watch. Like this dude is like has his stomach arced up, and he just like that had to hit perfectly. Like it literally hit him in the lower stomach, because like his ribs are sticking out. Like when you're in that position, I feel like, and if he hit him anywhere else, that ends so much worse. Like that had to be like pinpoint accurate. But the match was fun. All sorts of chaos. Luchasaurus is so over. It is great. I love to see it. I love the way he does choke slams. I love the way he finds ways to do choke slams on 2 people or to choke slam someone into another person. I love it. I said this like a week or 2 ago, but like, if I was a kid, Luchasaurus would probably be my favorite, because like Kane was my favorite when I was a kid, and the way Luchasaurus is taken the typical big man offense and added so much more to it, because like it's a cliche. It is a big wrestling cliche for a big man to do any move that requires him to run a little bit, and for the announcers to be like, he doesn't move like a big man. Like, it's so played out. But Luchasaurus is one of the few. He's doing flips off the apron. He's doing actually athletic stuff. He's moving quickly. He's moving slow compared to AEW wrestlers, but compared to other big guys, he's actually moving fast. He's not like when like Braun Strowman runs around the ring and they're just like, oh my God, look how fast he's going. Where it's like, no, he's just big. So it's impressive to watch him run at all. Like Luchasaurus is like, keeping up with these guys for the most part. And he's so over for like an ad. Yeah, I'm really focusing on Luchasaurus for this match, but he was, again, because that happened at our show that we were at. It happens almost every time there's a Lucha Express match. Like they have these moments, and Luchasaurus is continuously over. and it was so fun. The ending was good. I was not expecting the Super Elite to win, but I'm not surprised either. But that's a lot of fun, a lot of crazy moves. There was the weird botch, though, speaking of Luchasaurus, like where Kenny Omega was trying to powerbomb Luchasaurus while the rest of the Elite picked him up. And they played it off well, but I really wanted to see how that move was actually going to look, because that was a rough fall there. Kenny played it off well. He just, pretty much acknowledged it as a botch, which was nice. But yeah, fun match, lots of craziness. What about you, James? What did you think about it?
I love the match. I think it did everything it needed to. I think the Super Elite needed to win because this was their first match together. We've seen the Elite, we've seen Super Click, but this is the first time all of them are together, and excluding the Good Brothers, but they looked fantastic, excluding the botch, which I don't understand how it happened, but excluding the botch, they all looked great. They looked cohesive, they looked strong, and I'm a big believer that an established team should always beat a bunch of individuals put together. No matter how good the individuals are, no matter Bryan Danielson, no matter Christian Cage, who, as Nick said, is the Impact champion, I think 9 times out of 10, the established guys should be the winners. And I think they booked it beautifully. I think a big thing to note is this is technically Bryan's first loss in the company. So it's good to get it out of the way. Even though he wasn't the guy who took the pin, he still does have that first loss on his record. And yeah, I agree with you. Luchasaurus is fantastic. He's over. I think he has the second best hot tag right now, right behind John Silver. And I agree with you. I think the spot of the night was that choke slam that he did with Cole onto Kenny. Yeah. Like, that was just epic. And just as I said, that was the spot of the night. The match actually had it wasn't like the scariest bump of the night, but it definitely was. It had the move of the night that I never want to see this guy do again. I never need to see Bryan Danielson hit the flying headbutt off the top rope.
Agreed.
I don't need it. It's unsafe. I'm sure I know he's a professional who knows how to hit it, but there's just too much risk there for a guy with his health issues. I just don't need to see it again.
If I can just quickly interject, I don't even think it's that good of a move. Like, it doesn't look like it would hurt the opponent that much. I never bought it as a good move. Like, I never liked when Benoit did it. It doesn't click with me, that move. But that's
I gotta agree. I don't love it either. I mean, Christian Cage hits it sometimes. I'm just like, it doesn't. You're just hitting your head into somebody at his chest. Like, it doesn't hurt that much. The impact just isn't there. No pun intended.
There's one guy who did it that I was like, okay, I see how this works, and it was Umaga. It was I mean, if a giant Samoan is gonna hit me with his head from the top rope, yeah, that shit's gonna hurt. But
kayfabe, their heads are harder.
I don't even know if that's kayfabe. That might actually be legit. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not. No, I mean, like, I know it's kayfabe, but that might also just be a legit thing. Who the hell knows?
Oh no, I doubt it.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, I obviously don't think Samoans have harder heads than anybody else. I'm just being goofy. Sorry, Nick.
Complete random tangent, really fast. Every time we bring up the fact that Samoans have harder heads in kayfabe, I always think of the time when I think Paige was facing Tamina and she headbutted her and fell. just the perfect, because she wasn't been in wrestling for so long. Just a perfect level of kayfabe keeping in ring was great. I was like, good, continue. I had to just get that in there.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I thought it was a fun match. The fact that the Super Elite looked so dominant, they protected Jungle Boy, who, oh my God, how many kicks to the head did that kid take? How many knees to the head did he take? That was a lot, but good. I want him to be protected. And I am interested to see where this story goes next. I feel like we've been in a little bit of a holding pattern because we know what Bryan's intentions are, and he wants Kenny again. And we know that Kenny does not want Bryan again. But okay, what's the next step? We need to do something to keep that story going. And I guess Hangman is the key to it, because now Hangman's going to be applying pressure in his own way. But we'll see. Either way, great opener. great showing from everyone involved.
You know, to get back to the botch for a second, I thought commentary did a very good job of at least not explaining it away, but explaining in terms of the match where Excalibur basically went, well, they got a little too big for their britches there, trying to power bomb this huge guy in Luchasaurus, despite the fact there were 4 of them. Now, I think it just ended up where Kenny just didn't get the grip right, and he just sat him out, and it was like a little mini shield power bomb because Luchasaurus still sold it, but Kenny just laughing it off and keeping it moving. He's like, yeah, I fucked it up. Whatever. Let's just kill Jungle Boy now. I thought it was good all around cover from everybody. And honestly, this is going to be forgotten in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I just want to say Kenny is one of the best guys that I've seen handle a botch. He did it a couple of weeks ago when he messed up the moonsault from the outside on the railing. And it shows the experience that he has. Like if you're a young kid, like not to throw this guy under the bus, but like the big botch of the week, I think was from the Gun Club match on Dark Elevation. Austin
Colton.
Gunn.
Was it Colton? I can't remember. It was one of the two.
Young Gunn messed up his finish, and they had to edit it, which is fine. That's what Dark Elevation is for. But his handling of it, you could see he was frustrated with himself. He was frustrated with the finish, and that just shows his youth. Kenny is the world champion for a reason, and I not that I want to see more botches from him, but if anyone's going to do it, I like to see how he handles it.
All right, let's get to one last note here from AEW. Hikaru Shida went for her 50th win tonight against Serena Deeb in what I felt was a bit of a surprising decision. Shida ended up tapping out and losing to Deeb, who then went and, grabbed a trophy that they had made for Shida, hit Shida over the head with it, and shattered it on the floor. I'm a big Shida fan, so I'm pretty disappointed in this result. I didn't know that that Deeb was this level of heel. I know the last time I saw her was the Rio match on one of the buy-ins for one of the pay-per-views. I think it was the return of Double or Nothing with crowds, that pay-per-view. And she was definitely doing heelish things, but she hadn't fully turned yet. If she hadn't fully turned yet to this point, she's full-blown heel now. So, Danny, what'd you think about everything that happened in regards to Shida not getting her 50th win?
So I can say that I was very surprised, but I like it, actually. I am a fan. I think it is a good way to mix it up. I think it's a good way to evolve. If you want to look at the lore of the 50 win plaque, Jungle Boy got his plaque as just a segment. He already had 50 wins, and they gave him a little thing. It was nice. Now they've taken it a few steps further, and they made it into a full-fledged story. Shida going for the win, having the plaque destroyed, not getting the win, coming up short. So now you keep telling that story, and maybe the payoff of her getting the 50th win falls a little flat because you hyped it up so much and then she didn't get it. So maybe when it does happen, maybe it falls flat. But I like the idea of, one, subverting expectations, and not in a screw you, you think you know what's going to happen, but this is what's going to happen way, you know?
Just don't say subverting expectations. I have PTSD from Game of Thrones. Just let's not use that phrase like ever again. I know what you mean, and you're right, but
try being a fan of The Last Jedi and having to deal with that term, subverting expectations. Okay.
Yeah. Between the two of those things, it was just that phrase died. Just kill it, bury it with the past. What the hell Kylo said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know what you mean, and you're right. It was kind of a cool twist.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to do it, and not to be reductive, but it was a low stakes swerve. Like, it's not Hangman Page is clearly going to win the title and then he doesn't win it swerve, or like Britt Baker's clearly going to win the title because she's so over and she doesn't win it swerve. It's hey, this was a nice little moment, and it seemed like a foregone conclusion it was going to happen, but it didn't happen. And I think it's because, hey, look at that. It's an actual story for Shida. It's not just a, here's your moment on TV, go back to dark for the next 7 weeks. Like, it's actually something to build off of. And it's a way to do something with Deeb, who is great, but hasn't done much on anything really on AEW television. I know she's done a lot on dark again, but again, can't just go based off those stories. You got to bring those to TV, and it's a good way for Deeb to get back on TV too. And I just see this as a total win, and like I said, in a situation where they really couldn't have missed. They found a way to make it even better than I thought it was going to be.
Throw her in the TNT or TBS, championship tournament. That'd be a solid person in that tournament. I think she brings a lot of experience, and if she's a full blown heel, it brings a solid new heel to the tournament as well.
Yeah.
And the only thing I hope coming out of this is that I really don't want this to become a Shida like losing streak, and that's the story now. Like, I think that would, and I mean, maybe this is just because I'm a Shida fan, but she's been one of the most consistent winners in AEW since the beginning, and especially since her title reign. So I think having her going on a losing streak, even if it's a couple of weeks, I think would be kind of lame. I don't know if they're going to have her try to get this back on Dynamite next week, but I think she's got to pick up this 50th win soon. And I hope it comes with the fanfare it was supposed to tonight.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a long. I can't see them doing a losing streak story, or at least not a actual streak. Like, maybe she loses the next match to Deeb to further Deeb's heel turn, maybe, but I don't think it'll be a drawn out thing because AEW, that doesn't seem like their type of thing. Honestly, I can't see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the only losing streak thing I can think of is Cutler and Avalon, like way at the beginning. So yeah, you're right. They don't really do losing streak things. I guess
unless you're like literally a lower card like comedy jobber, like
Fuego like didn't have a win forever, and then he got his win before he was allegedly supposed to leave, and then they kept calling him back. So James, what are your thoughts on this whole Shida thing?
Danny hit a lot of the notes I was going to hit. I think this was a pleasant surprise for me. I am a big Shida fan. I think she carried I know she carried the women's division through the pandemic when it was a really tough time and there weren't a lot of women for AEW to highlight. And she never really got the credit she deserved. So it's great that she's actually getting, hopefully, a storyline out of this. It's not just going to be a one-off little thing. First of all, I think I need to apologize to Danny because he was so rocked by our hatred of subverting expectations. He was so unprepared for it. But I actually like the idea that we talked about this a lot with AEW. We tend to get rewarded as fans in AEW. We go with sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer because it's what we want. So to see to keep us on our toes a little bit in this low stakes match is, I think, good for AEW. We can't, as fans, just always expect we're going to get what we want because it makes things a little predictable. Good, but predictable. So every once in a while, throwing a monkey wrench into it is, I think, necessary. And this was a great way of doing it. I think Deeb is a great wrestler. She has been for the majority of her career. I think her working for NWA and her being the NWA Women's Champion was a great way of opening up the women's division in AEW a little bit more too. So to see her highlighted is also great. And I don't know if I agree with you about the losing streak for Shida because I think there's a lot of story to be told there. I don't know. I don't think I'd want it to go on for a long amount of time because she is Shida. She is that good. But if you look at a lot of Shida's defenses, they were either repetitive or they were against talent that were openly not necessarily ready to be women's champion. Like, they acknowledged a lot of that during her reign. And if you find out that, like, I guess I'm dating myself here a little bit, but if you do the Rocky 3 route which is as champion, she was just being fed like scrubs, which is unfair to a lot of her opponents from when she was champion. But if you find out that she was purposely avoiding some talent that she thought she would lose against, and now she's facing them because she's not the champion, she doesn't get to dictate how she defends. I think there's a lot of story to be told there. And I think it would be fun to see her struggling when she was this confident, aggressive champion for so long.
See, I think a lot of, and you touched upon this, a lot of her challengers were just based upon the fact that it was the pandemic and they didn't have the people to challenge her. So I don't know if I would necessarily agree with a storyline like that, because I just don't find it plausible, because it's not true.
I know it sounds just whatever. Like, I know this is how my response is going to feel, but the truth is I'm just happy Sheeta's doing anything.
Oh yeah, me too. I was so happy she was on TV today.
It's more along the lines of, okay, like I might have to bend over a little bit backwards to accept certain story beats. Like, let's say she does lose, or let's say they acknowledge that she was a champion who didn't have the best of opponents. I don't really care as long as I'm getting Shida right now. And I don't know if we covered it now, but I know we covered it in the past, or we've talked about it privately. The way Shida was handled after dropping the belt was horrendous.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think there has been a champion in AEW that lost the belt and then was just forgotten about the way she was. So I will take what I can get. And again, I have faith in AEW to tell a good story with her.
Well, I think the only other champion that was also forgotten was like Riho, but that's because,
Exactly.
I think it was Shivani mentioned a knee surgery in the match. Was that Sheeta's or was that Deeb's? Because maybe that's why she wasn't around. Did Sheeta get surgery and we just not really hear about it?
I think she's been on Dark the whole time. So not like she hasn't been around, just mainly on Dark.
That was Deeb. Deeb had a knee surgery a while ago. I think post dropping the NWA Women's Championship, or at some point she had it and then she came back, and I think that's when the heel stuff really started.
Okay. Yeah, I just, like I said, I just heard Shivani say something about a knee injury, and I wasn't sure who he was referring to. But all right, that about wraps things up for Dynamite. So, anyone feeling a draft in here? WWE draft. Oh, go ahead, James. Go ahead. Let's see it.
I make one corny joke all night, and that just opens the floodgates for you to just be unashamed of who you are. And I'm not saying you should be ashamed of who you are, but maybe be a little ashamed of who you are.
That's not even my joke. I stole it from Tony Reali. He's been doing that for 20 years.
Fine.
Anyway, WWE held their draft over the last few days, starting on SmackDown last Friday, continuing on Monday Night Raw a few days ago. We're going to start with the two women's champions, Charlotte and Becky, both drafted to the opposite brand, Charlotte to SmackDown, Becky to Raw, and they currently haven't changed their championships yet. Now, I believe it was last year, the New Day and the Street Profits were also champions. They were tag team champions, each drafted to the opposite brand, and they just swapped the titles, and that was the end of it. Both faces, both guys who apparently like each other. I know a lot of people, James giving the thumbs down included, were disappointed with that decision, but I'm curious to see where they go here now that they have two women holding the wrong belts on their new roster. So James, what do you think they should do here? Because clearly they're not swapping the belts again.
First and foremost, I'm just glad they're keeping Becky and Charlotte away from each other. I think we all need a gigantic break from that story, from that feud. I think they're going to be forever rivals, and I'm cool with that, but I need some time away.
Don't we all?
Moving on to how they're going to handle the belt situation. I don't know. I think Bianca taking the title off Charlotte could work. Because, hey, they don't care about taking titles off Charlotte because they're just happy to put another one on her. Just add to the list. And
you might have a problem there. Bianca went to Raw.
Yeah, but Charlotte is the Raw Women's Champion. So if
Who do you think she's going to take that title and then Becky loses to somebody on SmackDown?
I could see it.
She could lose to Sasha on at Crown Jewel, I guess.
It extends the feud between Bianca and Becky a little bit longer. But even that, I don't even know if it works. I'm just not a big fan of them trading titles that are brand specific. Like, I hated last year how they handled the New Day and the Street Profits, because both teams just were awarded a second title. Like, it wasn't, oh, their title reign continues just on a different show. Like, they're recognized as having an additional title reign. And I think that's just ridiculous. I don't understand how you can justify that. But I would rather they either just avoid this kind of thing altogether, just don't draft that way. If you're going to change titles, change the WWE and the Universal, or change the Intercontinental in the United States, but don't change the SmackDown Women's Championship or the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. Sorry. Just don't do it. And I don't know. Like, I think I think things are going to be a little spicy, but again, we're getting really close to having talent that have spent a little too much time together or on the verge of spending too much time together, interacting again. And I don't know. I think the sooner this gets resolved, the better. I don't want to see this dragged out. But hey, on the flip side, if you want to have Charlotte as the Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown and Becky as the SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw, and they just keep sort of defending and appearing on both shows, I don't think USA or Fox are going to be pissed about that exchange.
No, I would imagine not. Those are their the two biggest women they have on that roster. So I think both USA and Fox would be pretty okay with the both of them showing up on both shows. And just a point of procedure here, the draft will not take effect, I believe, until after Crown Jewel, which I think is on the 21st, just so you know when to avoid it. So everything should take effect on the 22nd, SmackDown the next day, despite the fact half the roster probably won't be there. But Danny, what do you think they're going to do here with Charlotte and Becky and some of the women's division surrounding them?
Oh, so I did not like this. So supposedly Fox asked WWE to bring Charlotte over. So just makes me think that Fox is fucking clueless and doesn't know what they're talking about, because I would never trade Becky for Charlotte in a million years. You know, one of those people is incredibly over and in the process of actually changing her character, and one of them's been the same character for 5 years. I don't know. One sounds way better than the other to me, but you know, I have a little bit of a bias, admittedly. I like that Becky was drafted first, as she should be literally the first pick of her night. But the way they do the draft is dumb. If you don't tell us the draft pools, it makes everything confusing and doesn't make sense. And it's hard to get excited when you don't know who can possibly be drafted. And I didn't like so much of it. I don't like switching champions, especially like James said, like when it's distinct ones like the Raw Women's Champion and the SmackDown Women's Champion. You can trade the Intercontinental and US Champion every single draft for all I care, but don't draft your main champions. Also, Charlotte is always drafted. It's not a big deal like her being drafted to a new show, because it happens every freaking time. Also, why draft Becky back to Raw? She's been back for 2 months and been on SmackDown for 2 months, and now she's just right back to Raw. So why did she beat Bianca for the SmackDown Women's title just to go over to Raw? Why did Charlotte retain against Alexa Bliss just to go over to SmackDown with the Raw Women's Championship? Like, all of this reeks of no foresight, no planning, and literally deciding on the day of or the day before. It was so bad. And Becky's promo on Raw, great. She did tease having a title unification match, which would be interesting. I don't want to see another Becky versus Charlotte match for at least 2 to 3 years, honestly. But it seems like it could happen, which if it is going to happen, we'll see on SmackDown and next week's Raw how they address it. But if she's going to go, if they're going to do title for title, that's literally spoiling the triple threat match, which, I still think she's going to retain anyway. I would be interested if they both held their titles past the 22nd and they were champions of the opposite show. I think there could be something interesting to be told there. I don't trust the company to do that. I think this was overall just really, really bad. I think they were going for the feel of like Batista and John Cena being drafted, when they were champions. But, those titles didn't have the name of the show in the name. So it was okay to just swap them. In this case, it's really not. And if they do a Street Profits New Day thing, that's also bad because it just says this means nothing. This title means nothing. I'm literally just handing it off for an identical one, but a slightly different color. And it's even worse if they count it as a new reign. That's garbage. That is absolutely garbage, especially with Charlotte, who, like James said, where she's going to lose the title soon anyway. It's not like she's going to hold this title till Mania. She'll probably drop it and win it back twice between now and Mania. I don't know. And like everything about the draft, and we'll get more into like specific picks later, but like just a quick side note since we're talking about the Horsewomen, I pray that Bayley goes to Raw just so her and Becky can interact because they are the two of the Horsewomen, and I guess this is like showing my preference of the Horsewomen, but they're the only two who have evolved, who have changed their character since they've been on the main roster. Sasha is fantastic, but her heel and face character is exactly the same. Like, it doesn't change really. She hasn't really changed. She's still great though. Charlotte hasn't changed at all. She's still a fantastic wrestler, but her character is, I keep saying it, she's a robot. Her promos are robotic. She has two tones of voice, and she never strays from those two tones of voice. So I really want Bayley to go over so her and Becky have an interaction. And my only potential hope for this by come WrestleMania season is that we get the Horsewoman Fatal 4-Way. But that's wishful thinking at this point.
Pretty sure Bayley's a free agent too, so
yeah, because
pretty
she's
much
injured,
do anything with her. But you answered your own question in there. Why did Becky come back and win the SmackDown Women's Champion? Why did Charlotte go over on Alexa Bliss? They don't plan. They don't know what they're going to do a week in advance. They didn't have this draft planned out. They winged it probably the night before. Like you said, they probably had a cram, like a kid studying for a final in college. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't do long-term plans ever. The only long-term plan they probably have is they're just praying to God that The Rock can get some insurance to come for WrestleMania, and that's it. That's the closest thing they probably have to a long-term plan.
Oh, so I want to because you just jogged my memory to, because like I said, it was reported that Fox wanted Charlotte to come over. So WWE folds and they decide to do that. And I think, and this is me, I guess, doing a little bit of a red string theory in here, but because they wanted Charlotte on SmackDown, fucking both Becky and Seth had to get drafted to Raw. Seth, who felt so fresh being on SmackDown and felt like, because he's been on Raw for years and years, so like, I wanted him to be on SmackDown longer. I wanted Becky to be on SmackDown longer. And we could even maybe speculate that Bianca getting drafted to Raw and the Street Profits getting drafted to Raw is also a snowball effect of this. And I just think, it was such a misfire. I just wanted to add that into my rants.
Pepe Sylvia. I got loads of Pepe Sylvia.
To sort of jump off that point though, with the partners or the spouses being traded with their significant other, I'm going to try to have a positive outlook on this. Being positive, I know, right? I think they wanted to avoid Seth losing to Roman, and they could only come up with so many reasons as to why Seth and Roman weren't interacting. So I could also see, like, I'm not a big fan of this drip god character they've done with Seth, but at least it is fresh. I completely agree. It's something different for him. It's something that he's clearly having fun with. So I'm glad they didn't get rid of it. And I don't think he could have sustained it if he was going against Roman.
But I kind of agree with that, even though like I think that was one of the few interesting things Roman had left to do, because
yeah,
don't see anything interesting for Roman after Lesnar. And like, granted, I'm not huge into Roman. I'm more into the character still than the wrestling. But like, the Seth thing was one of the most intriguing things, especially since they were both heels. But also, just to complain even more, Edge got drafted to Raw, so like this happens a lot, as I'm sure we'll talk about later. Like, you're not even freshening things up if feuds are just being moved from one show to the other. Like, you could have split them up and just ended the feud. And this happened not just with Edge and Rollins, but with other people on the card, technically Becky, Bianca. You're just bringing feuds over. Because I remember they did this once with this guy. I don't know if you guys remember Dean Ambrose, but he was feuding with The Miz, and they both just got drafted from SmackDown to Raw. And it was like, supposed to be exciting, like, oh, look who's here, and then, oh, look, Dean Ambrose is here, and it's like, well, they were just fighting. They just had like 3 matches on SmackDown, and I was just gonna have that match on Raw. I hate that. I hate when they do those kind of things.
I do agree with you, and I just have to believe that, one, I think the Edge and Seth story is going to end at Crown Jewel no matter what. If that feels like that, the only reason that storyline is continuing is because the Saudi prince wanted it.
No, they're going to do Becky and Seth versus Edge and Beth Phoenix.
No. What Seth has said, he does not want to work with Becky again. He's made that clear. But even beyond that, I don't know. There were some moves that I'm happy about. There were some moves that I'm not happy about. Obviously, I don't think the Becky and Charlotte move was necessary, but hey, they were this close to breaking up the Street Profits. So the fact that they are still a team, I'll take it. Yeah. It is what it is. And I don't know. Jeff Hardy on SmackDown feels right. Jeff Hardy versus Roman is a match that Jeff has wanted for a long, long time. So I don't know. I'm trying to be hopeful.
Well, then let's talk about some of the guys who moved around. So we had Drew McIntyre moving over to SmackDown. James, you said Jeff Hardy moved to SmackDown. Sheamus went to SmackDown as well. And then you had guys like Seth Rollins, who was already mentioned, Kevin Owens and Finn Balor going to Raw. So I think there's a lot of new matchups here. Not necessarily all of them. Obviously, like we just said, Seth and Edge are still going to be happening. And I thought that shit when Seth went to Edge's house the other week was pretty fucking funny, as screwed up as it was. So, some of it's going to continue, but you have a guy like Drew. I don't know when he'll challenge Roman, but he's definitely the guy who's going to be challenging Roman. And then over on Raw, at some point, we're going to see Finn challenge Big E, which I think is going to be cool. I'm sure Seth will make a run at that title at some point. So I think we're still getting a lot of interesting matchups here and a lot of new ones, even if there is some carryover.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There is plenty of room for freshness. There is still some familiarity. And I think the reason it's hard to get excited is because on some level, we just know the booking is going to be the same. And on another level, a lot of these guys, it's unfair to put this on WWE, but it's the truth. It's different from, say, AEW bringing in somebody new because the ecosystem is changing. The entire ecosystem is changing. With WWE, it's the same ecosystem that they themselves are dividing. So we've seen most of these guys already go from show to show, which hinders that excitement. I think we needed a little bit more of a presence from NXT. I think NXT call-ups happening would have definitely helped this situation a lot more. But I am excited about some of the matchups we have coming. I think Drew Roman is going to be a battle of the Titans. I know I already mentioned Jeff Hardy because I'm a Jeff Hardy mark, and I obviously don't expect Jeff Hardy to win, but it could be a nice filler feud for like the Royal Rumble pay-per-view kind of thing. And on Raw, I'm less excited about the top of the card as I am about the mid card. I am excited for Finn Balor and AJ Styles to be on the same brand for the first time in God knows how long. Like Finn and AJ, like they tweeted each other. Like those seeds are being planted. And I don't know where you could go with it, but I'm excited to see where it can go, whether they team up or they feud or team up and then feud. I think there's a lot that you could do in that mid card, and I'm treating this as a fresh start. You guys saw me last week. I was down and out when it came to WWE. I have no real reason to think that should change. I have no real reason to think that good things are coming, but I'm treating this as a new day one, or at least I'll treat October 22nd as the new day one. And I'm trying to be hopeful, and I think certain key talents moving are good. Kevin Owens was somebody desperately in need of a change. I don't necessarily know going from SmackDown to Raw was the change, but hey, it's something. I think the big thing, and this sucks to say, a lot of these guys needed to get away from Roman. I think a lot of top talent that are amazing needed to get away from Roman so they can shine. Finn Balor, we all agree. We would have all been so happy if Finn won the title from Roman, but we all knew he wasn't going to. So as opposed to fighting for second place on SmackDown, they can all be fighting for first place on Raw. And I don't know if that says something about Roman's booking. I don't know what that says about the other guys, but at the very least, there are opportunities for these guys to shine now on Raw.
You know, I feel like the last time that ecosystem changed in the way it does for AEW all the time was when AJ Styles showed up. Like, I feel like nothing else is really, I know sometimes the NXT guys coming up, it does that, but I feel like that was the last time that really happened.
I want Danny to be able to say his point, but I think the big thing was, and it hurt everybody in the long run. But the ecosystem changing for WWE wasn't NXT call-ups going to the main roster. It was whatever hot, popular guy went into NXT. We never saw, other than AJ, which was a great point, we never saw a hot free agent go straight to the main roster. They all had to funnel through NXT. And it made NXT seem so exciting because holy shit, Kevin Owens, holy shit, Shinsuke Nakamura or Samoa Joe or the Undisputed Era as they came in one at a time. It was great for NXT, but then they did all of their cool shit in NXT. And then by the time they get to the main roster, they're treated as mid-card guys, which if they had just debuted on the main roster as mid-card guys and built their way up, it wouldn't have felt like a stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. So, and now that NXT is supposedly staying away from hiring that indie talent, I don't know the next time there's going to be an exciting signing. Like, unless something plops in front of them that they'd be stupid to reject, which who knows, they might be. I think we're just going to be seeing this farm system develop through NXT, and then eventually the good ones are going to go to the main roster. But Danny, sorry for taking up so much time.
Perfectly okay. So what you just said, or part of what you just said, it's, about leaving SmackDown instead of being second to Roman. You could go be first on Raw. I think you're just going from being second to Roman on SmackDown to being second to Roman on a whole different show that's second to Roman, because that's what Raw is right now. It's just second to Roman. So in theory, I agree with that, but to the way Roman and SmackDown have been booked compared to Raw, it kind of is still second place. But
can I ask you a question then?
Yes.
When Drew was champion, I felt Drew felt like one of the champions. Like he didn't feel like the secondary champion to Roman's main champion. Did you agree with that? And if so, do you think anybody's capable of feeling like Roman's equal on another show right now?
I almost agree with that, not completely, because Drew did lose to Roman at Survivor Series, and really, like, when Drew first won the title, I could see that, but Roman wasn't even back yet at that point, so Drew was basically unopposed at that point. But then once Roman came back, he kind of was second, because he was like having the back and forth with Randy, which is crazy to say that feuding with Randy feels like secondary now, but also, just quick little tangent about Drew's title reign. Did you guys notice how similar it was to Kofi's? Like, he fought Dolph Ziggler, he fought Randy Orton. It was a very, very similar title reign. But anyway, funny enough, I feel like Drew being drafted to SmackDown actually makes him feel more equal to Roman than being the champion on Raw. Because I do think Drew is the only credible opponent that Roman has, because no offense, James, but Jeff Hardy isn't it. Jeff Hardy is not a credible contender for the mid-card title anymore, which, is a shame, because I love Jeff Hardy. I'm not trying to disparage him, but Drew is that guy. But I think Drew should be the one to take it off of him, because I don't know who else does. And so I don't want them to do that yet, and I don't trust them to hold off on it, because they have no patience. They will just rush into it, and then they'll still probably have him take the title off in months from now and act like the first feud never happened. But I do like the fresh starts for certain people, like for Kevin Owens, but I already think they fucked up the Kevin Owens one, because he already feels like lower down the card because he was interrupted by Tozawa. I understand it was just to have a stunner and do a squat, but it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like a good start. Ricochet is an interesting one, because he is a jobber, and he couldn't even win the 24/7 title, but somehow going to SmackDown, he's one of the few that I have hope for some reason, and that's probably foolish on my part, but we'll see. I don't like Sheamus. Cool, Sheamus has been having great matches. He'll just keep having great matches. I don't think he's gonna like rise up the card or anything, but it's just new people for him to face. Maybe he reunites with Cesaro. Maybe they feud again. We'll see how that goes. But who else got drafted? Seth, I already said what I felt about Seth. I feel like it was too soon to take him off. Finn, I don't agree, because I agree that he should be away from Roman, but like he just got back. And again, same thing with Becky. He just got back recently. He was only on SmackDown for like 3-4 months, and you could have stretched that out longer. There's so much more for him to do on SmackDown. Like, I don't know, being on SmackDown just feels like a bigger deal right now, so I don't want to see these people leave SmackDown. And also, he was drafted in the 4th round. And I know it's like the draft doesn't matter, and I'm going to shit on the format in a second, but like, again, in a second, but like, he was drafted in the 4th round. This is behind a lot of people. And so it's not a good sign. And I know those are reports that they want him to take Drew's spot. And if that's the case, fantastic. Why would he be drafted 4th round then? Makes no sense. But I want to shit on this format real quick. They would announce names, and then they would cut to that person backstage. And the key example I want to go to is Damian Priest. Someone who I like, not someone who I love, but someone who I've liked. And I think they've done a good job of booking. I think this was one of those times where it's like, it was 5 seconds long. It was just him backstage going like about being he looked so stupid, and it was so cringy. It was so bad, so badly staged, because it was only 5 seconds, and it was 3 seconds too long of him just nodding and smiling. He looked so stupid, and so did majority of the people they did it with. Like, this is why, again, I know I'm biased, but like Becky coming out to start the show, that's how you do it, because then the audience gets that surprise of like, oh shit, this person's here now. This is awesome. It sounds weird to compliment the superstar shakeup, but I prefer that, where like people would just show up randomly in the show and be like, oh, this person's here now. What a great surprise. Or even the way they used to do it, where like they would announce the name and everyone would be sitting backstage and react to where they're being drafted, like almost like a real draft. The way they did it this year was, I hated it so much, and it made so many people look stupid. I think Cross was another one who looked so stupid.
It's like, worse too, because Priest is a guy who was already on Raw. Like, what's there to be excited about saying, yeah, I got I'm staying.
Yeah, I
Like,
could keep fighting the Miz and John Morrison.
right?
Yeah.
Like and again, like I agree with you. I'm a Priest fan. I don't love him yet. I could see that developing because they have been booking him well, and he does have that sort of it factor to him. But yeah, I agree. I until WWE is willing to do a complete overhaul draft where it's not just a shakeup in anything but name. Don't do it this way. Don't do it this way. There was no fanfare to it.
Hell, at least bring back Cletus or something.
Cletus, which one?
Cletus is the Fox robot.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
He has a
Fair
name.
enough.
But like, also, didn't it feel like the show, like the draft and the regular episode of Raw and SmackDown were like two separate entities just happened to be going at the same time?
I agree.
Like it didn't feel important. Like they didn't feel connected at all. It was just like, oh, here's a match. Cool. Oh my god. You know what? No, this is way worse. People would make their entrance, and then they would go to commercial. They would come back from commercial, announce the draft picks, and then cut back to the person who's now been standing in the ring for 6 fucking minutes.
It was so bizarre. It was so bizarre. And there is an actual worse thing that we need to acknowledge about the draft, and that's how it absolutely butchered the women's tag team division, which wasn't much of a division to begin with because they just don't put time into it. But Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart,
Yes. Oh my god.
is them getting separated might be the most baffling decision I saw all draft. They beat the tag team champions, I think three times. Three times. Were promised a tag team title shot. Another team came and took their title shot, and then they got split up. So what's the point? What's the like? I don't understand. Like I can't say oh man, Tegan and Shotzi, that was the team I was rooting. Like I can't say that, but at least they were an established team. Why get rid of that? There's one team in the entire division now, and it's the champions. It's the champions,
and it was something for them to do. Like now, I guarantee Nox and Shotzi get lost in the shuffle so quickly.
Yep.
Which is a shame because I really like Tegan Nox. But you're right, they broke them up. They broke up Natalia and Tamina. I'm trying to even think of who else was a tag team because they don't have a lot of them to begin with. So
they just broke up Shayna and Nia a few weeks ago, which again, like not a big loss as a team, but they were a team.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of happy about that because I think Shayna got moved to SmackDown, and I think she's going to do really well over there.
I think so too.
I liked Shayna a lot in NXT. I liked hating her. You know, she was really good heel in NXT. I thought she had some great matches with Ember Moon and Kairi Sane, and she got moved to the main roster, and she was biting people. So I think a good reset here on SmackDown could be a lot of fun for her, and I think she's got a lot to do over there. You know, they moved her there, and then I guess the other big name they moved over there is Natalia, which
big name.
Yeah, I mean,
like, the moment you said it, I was waiting for Danny's reaction.
We'll go brand name here, like just somebody who's been around. But yeah, I don't know. I think Raw probably got the better of this. They got Carmella and Zelina along with Bianca, outside of the women who are non-champions. And I think that's a definite win for Raw there.
They also got Liv Morgan, I think, which is, I think, the biggest pick
yes.
non-champion was. Carmella's big because she's never left SmackDown, but Liv feels like someone that if they just put in even an ounce of time and effort into, could be a star for them.
But that's another example of just bringing over feuds to the other show because she was feuding with Carmella and Zelina Vega, and now they're all on Raw. And they're just going to do that again.
Yep.
For the next 5 weeks.
Looking at Raw's women roster, and they have a few more women than SmackDown does. They have 4 more, but longer show. It's Bianca, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, Becky, obviously, Alexa when she returns, probably. Carmella, Nia, but whatever. Zelina, Doudrop, Dana Brooke, Liv Morgan, Mia Yim, Tamina, and Tegan Nox. That's a pretty fucking good roster there. They got a lot to do.
Oh, Dana Brooke, go for it, man.
I don't care about Dana Brooke, but god damn, they fucking
eviscerated her
so hard. Like, what was the point? Like, and you're not. telling a story. That was just a weird decision you guys made to just shit on her nonstop on commentary. And
Yep.
she got a good pop when she came out. Like, I was really surprised. You're like, I was like, dude, why are you burying her? I don't get it. Granted, I don't think Dana Brooke's that good, but like, why would you do that to your own? We were just talking about Jade Cargill on AEW. She's not that good a wrestler. She's still really green, but like, look at the way they present her, and like, look how they're presenting Dana Brooke, who actually is somehow over, and they do that.
Dana is like the little engine that could. Like, we never really expect much from her. We're just happy to see her pushing along. And for a while, I think that was actually her storyline. Like, oh, we're just rooting for Dana because she hasn't quite made it yet. And it's so meta how this was a talent that needed to spend more time in NXT. She got drafted. She got called up to the main roster way too early, and they couldn't find the right thing for her. First, she was Charlotte's like assistant. Then she,
that was the right thing for her.
Oh no, it was, but then they abandoned it way too early.
Yeah,
and then they had her doing Titus Worldwide with Titus and Apollo. And then I guess the biggest thing was her and Mandy. Like, it feels like there was a big gap in between in terms of anything that mattered. And then Mandy went down to NXT, which is probably the best thing. I mean, I think Mandy in NXT right now is a great fit. But again, Dana is with nothing. And now it looks like they're probably going to put Dana and Doudrop together, which, yay, a tag team, I guess. But I don't know. I'm always going to be rooting for Dana, but you hit the nail on the head just now. Look at Jade Cargill and look at Dana Brooke and just how they're treated, and therefore how we care about them.
Yeah. RIP to the Sexy Muscle Friends. The greatest unofficial tag team name ever. You know, I'm looking at the SmackDown roster, and there's a couple of people here we'll get to in a second, but they got a couple of names with Shayna. Sasha's still there, obviously. Tony Storm, Shotzi, and Natalia. So I think they're going to have some good matches over there too. You know, assuming WWE booking doesn't completely shit the bed, which
they're gonna.
Come on. Yeah, they're gonna.
I mean, Tony Storm has been on TV like maybe 3 times since she was called up.
I forgot she was called up. Like, I was writing a document, and we'll get to some of the other NXT call-ups later. I was like, is Tony? Oh, yeah, shit. Tony got called up to SmackDown. Completely slipped my mind.
Whoop-de-doo, Basil.
Yep. I do want to switch back to the men for a second, because I want to talk about something that they keep doing, and it's driving me nuts. Stop splitting up the New Day. I get it. Like, I understand they're trying to get Big E to be his own thing, but they could all run on the same show and like not be near each other. It drives me nuts.
Or even better. And again, I know it's not fair because it's way 2 different booking teams, but look at how AEW handles stables or tag teams. Look at Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Jurassic Express as a whole. You can be a team 1 week and then the next week be a singles guy and not feel like, oh, why isn't he with his teammate? Like, why WWE refuses to be flexible in that way is just baffling. And it's even bigger with the New Day because the New Day is such a moneymaker for them. Like, why dilute that product? Why dilute that brand for the sake of just saying, well, Big E's standing on his own? It doesn't matter. People want to see Big E standing on his own with them. But like,
they did it with Kofi. Yeah, they did it with Kofi Mania. Like, half of Kofi Mania was Big E and Woods winning that gauntlet match to get Kofi into the main events.
I don't get it, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say New Day are still not happy about it, but I can't say that Big E is suffering, but Kofi and Xavier are suffering. And I know this isn't something like it's still too early to really talk about, but Xavier Woods for King.
Yes. I was literally just going to say they're probably going to do it again now with, X is probably going to be in the King of the Ring tournament. So, they're once again having one of the guys on the New Day go after a solo thing. And they're probably, they're not going to split Kofi and Woods up, but no, we have to split them away from Big E. I don't know. It's one of these pet peeves I have with WWE where they keep doing this, where I think they're so much better together than apart. It's just ridiculous to me.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to those NXT call-ups I mentioned before. We had a couple interesting ones. We'll start with SmackDown here. Hit Row coming up. I thought was very interesting. There's Isaiah Swerve Scott leads that group, and I haven't watched a lot of NXT recently, but I've seen a bunch of them. I think more around the time of the last takeover. I like Swerve a lot. And I like his crew now too, for what I've seen from them. So I think they're going to be a lot of fun on SmackDown. Also coming up are Ridge Holland. I'm going to butcher this name and I apologize. Xia Li? Xia Li, yes. And I believe she's the first Chinese woman on WWE's roster, excuse me, which I think is a very big deal. And I would like to congratulate her. And the titles. And was it Aaliyah at NXT call up or was she already up? And I got Tony Storm again.
I think she was already called up, but she was never on TV.
Yeah, she was on like main event and stuff, I think.
Yeah. So there you go. But
I know you missed one.
I know I did. Go ahead.
Austin Theory, man.
Well, he went to Raw.
But still, just an NXT call-up.
Well, I was going to name the Raw ones next.
Well, my bad. I didn't know we were differentiating. I apologize.
Well, spoiler alert, Austin Theory went to Raw. I very much liked his segment with Jeff Hardy and the selfies that he took. And a very big surprise, Gable Stevenson coming up. The recent
it's just Stevenson.
Oh, is it they're just calling him Stevenson now?
No, like it's Gable Stevenson, not Stevenson.
Oh, excuse me. I must have misread.
The man is an Olympian, Nick. Get it right. Get it right.
My bad, Stevenson. So yes, he's up. Completely skipped NXT. He will be on Raw, and like James said, former Olympian. So I think he's going to be cool to watch, but we'll see where he is developmentally and what they do with him. Is there anybody you guys are looking forward to? Danny, I guess we can start with you here.
Xia Li. That's it, really. I hit Raw too, but I don't watch a lot of NXT lately. But like, there's someone I'm excited for. I don't know a lot about them, but I already get the vibe that I'm gonna like them. Xia Li's really good. I'd be interested to see how she's used. Ridge Holland is the most generic looking person I've ever seen in my life. Sorry, like I'm sure he's good, but like I don't think he has a chance of getting over. Austin Theory, I understand why you guys liked his segment. I think if it was anyone else, I would have liked it. He also seems kind of generic and like I don't think he's gonna get over too much either. I have very little faith in him. I can't explain it fully, but like something about his presence, his segment, his acting was just like so close. Like you're almost a good douchebag, but you just seem like corny, but not like you're trying to be corny. It didn't gel with me. James, you wanted to?
So I just because Theory is actually the biggest one I'm excited for, along with Hit Row on SmackDown. But Theory is a guy that they clearly have something invested in, because I don't know if you guys remember, but this isn't the first time he's on the main roster. He was one of Seth's guys a year and a half ago, and they clearly see something in him. I like him too. I think he was so fun in NXT along with Johnny Gargano as a member of the Way. I think you sort of hit it, Danny. I think he is corny, and it's way too early to make this comparison, but especially in terms of talent, but at least in terms of the comedy, I see a lot of early Kurt Angle there. A guy who is going to be a douchebag, but thinks he's the funniest guy in the room, and doesn't also understand that sometimes he himself is the joke too. Now, granted, I didn't really like the fact that it happened to Jeff Hardy, because obviously, but it's a good way to get heat on a guy. It's a good way to attack the leaving baby face, but we'll see. It's weird that they already changed his finish. Like, his finisher isn't supposed to land on the knee that way. It's just a cutter. Like it's a fireman's carry into a cutter. So I don't know why they did it, but they did it. And just switching over to Hit Row real quick. I'm pretty sure Swerve is still the North American champion. Yeah, so that means he's going to have to drop it very shortly. And he hasn't had a single defense. He's been champion for almost 2 months and he hasn't had a single defense. He's mostly been tag team stuff with the rest of his team, but don't know why they did it that way. But again, he's a good talent. And I think the rest of his group is still very green, but they're there for him. So if they're just going to be his muscle, that's fine. They'll develop in a way that's not going to feel too rushed.
Well, he was feuding with Phantasmo, right? Or Phantasma. The last time I checked, are they still feuding? I get what to make sense of all the tag team matches.
Oh no, it makes sense. Like the explanation is there, but he won the title off of Bronson Reed before Reed got released. And that was, I think, 2 months ago. This feud hasn't been going on that long. And even if it has been, why has it been going on that long? He's the North American champion. He should be defending the North American championship.
Yeah. Jumping back to Theory, though, everyone on Reddit refers to him as a himbo.
Oh, he is. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how familiar you guys are with, like, his NXT work. He is 100% the good-looking dumb guy in the family with Gargano, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell, and I guess now Dexter Lumis. But I'm sad to see the way split up, but Theory has a lot of upside. He's still very young. Like I think he's early 20s. Yeah, so yeah, he is definitely going to need to develop and develop fast on the main roster. But I think the fact that this is his second time on the main roster, and he did so well in NXT. I think it's just, he's got to find his groove a little bit.
Yeah, he's got this personality part down, I think. So once he finds his groove, I think he's going to be fine. And, his wrestling can only improve. So also, we know why his finisher got changed. Only one person on the main roster is allowed to have a cutter, and you know damn well who it is. And that's why
QT Marshall.
Yeah.
What were we going to say, Danny?
I was going to say, I feel the opposite. I feel like he's fine in ring. I feel like his charisma is like not there. Like that was hard to watch, kind of like bad, like kind of comedy. It wasn't like I can't think of, like, it wasn't like a Kurt Angle, like being goofy, but thinking he's being funny or clever or serious. Like that was just like so awkwardly, like, I think he has terrible charisma. I did not like that at all.
I would recommend watching his NXT stuff.
Yeah, no, at least give him some time.
I've seen some clips of like the way and stuff, and it is good. But like so far, it's a bad start for me on the main roster. I'm not big on it so far.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think you give him some time, and hopefully he'll grow on you. All right, one last thing from the draft I wanted to get to on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar came out and announced that due to the workings of one Paul Heyman, he is now a free agent and free to do whatever he wants. Now, obviously, it's very interesting that he's a free agent and will be on both Raw and SmackDown, which makes it very easy for them to book him whenever the hell they want. But I do like the continuation of the is Paul Heyman still working for this guy storyline out of that. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm really intrigued by this Heyman Lesnar thing, because I'm always intrigued by Heyman and Lesnar, and Heyman being on the wrong side of this now for the first time in a long time is just, well, like I said, it's intriguing to me.
I could see this just being Brock again fucking with Paul, because it's not even the first time a superstar has gotten this deal in storyline. Like Cena a few years ago had this storyline where he's like, I'm John Cena and I'm going to appear on both shows. And it was fine. So I
when he came back, right? Cena? Sorry.
I mean, he did like one Raw appearance, but it was mostly SmackDown stuff. But the last time he came back, same thing. It's like, I could be on both shows because you can't see me anyway. So I think Brock could have, like, in the storyline, could have gotten that same deal. I don't think anyone's going to argue it. And to him just continuing fucking with Paul works. I I don't know. I'm excited for Brock to be able to appear on Raw because I am maybe one of the last people who still wants this match, but I want Brock versus Bobby so bad.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. But I don't know. In terms, I think the Paul Brock storyline is fascinating. I hope it continues past Crown Jewel, but I don't know how you continue it without him also still feuding with Roman, and I don't need that feud continuing. So I don't know. Like, I'm trying to be positive, but it's sort of feeling like WWE is booking themselves into a corner again because I think Roman needs Paul, but I think Brock also needs Paul. And I don't see Roman being like, yeah, you can work for Brock on Raw, but when you're here, you're working for me. Like, I don't see that happening. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous, but hey, Roman seems to be the one story that they care enough about to put some thought into.
I think that was very well put, James. But also, I don't think we're going to see Lesnar on Raw. Like, I know he can, but like, why is he going to go on Raw? If they do the Bobby match, I don't think that would be until like WrestleMania. So they also like Lesnar needs Heyman, but he's also not going to be around after Crown Jewel, probably more than likely 90%. So he really doesn't. And yeah, I think it would be terrible to split up Roman and Paul. This is one of the only things keeping Roman at all interesting for me. And even then, I kind of disagree in the fact that I don't think the storyline's that good. I feel like it makes Roman look kind of dumb, which they've done a good job in not making him look dumb. Because I just don't believe that they're doing enough job to make it convincing that Heyman would be helping Lesnar. Like, especially because Lesnar is just not a strong promo, so he just sounds goofy when he's trying to make it seem like Paul is helping him out. And I think that's one of the problems with that face Lesnar in general. It's just he shouldn't talk, and having him talk is bad. But I don't know. I'm not big. The storyline's really not clicking for me at all. It doesn't help that I don't want to see this match again. I don't really care that the roles are reversed. I'd much rather have seen the Bobby match. Like, Bobby Lesnar sounds way better in every aspect to me. But I don't know. I just want this to be over and done with. And it's Crown Jewel, so it most likely is. And this is just the legend match at Crown Jewel. Like, they have the Goldberg one too, but like, it's just the legend's going to be there, and that's it. Goldberg's going to be gone after Crown Jewel. Lesnar's going to be gone after Crown Jewel. Roman gets his win over Lesnar. I know he beat him in like whatever stupid B show he beat him at, like the one time he beat Lesnar. But like, this is a more definitive one, and then Roman can move on. I probably won't care regardless, honestly. I'm starting to check out with that stuff a little bit, but I'm enjoying the promos. And that's about it. Like, I don't care about the match. I know you do, James. I don't mean, I'm not saying like you're wrong to care about it. Most people do care about it. I'm borderline checked out. I'm in it for the promos, not for the outcome at this point.
You know, the other thing I wish they did with Paul Heyman was they set this whole thing up on SmackDown where the Usos hadn't been drafted to SmackDown yet, and Roman went to Paul, you better get my cousins on SmackDown. And he went, don't worry, I'll handle it, Tribal Chief. And then Roman turned to the Uso, goes, if you guys don't get drafted to SmackDown, leave them for dead. And guess what happens? They get drafted to SmackDown in the first round. No, nothing. Yeah. Like, they showed so much stuff they could have done there. I saw somebody over on Square Circle maybe suggest that, you know, they get drafted to Raw, and then the New Day get drafted to SmackDown, and there's a trade or something like that. You know, like, just something where Paul had to be freaking out for like the entire episode, and then he finally gets his shit together and saves his own skin. Like, I hate when they just set something cool up like that, and then it just goes by the wayside. And I don't know if that's a product of, there's like a Raw team and a SmackDown team doing the writing, and they just didn't talk to each other for these last two episodes, which is both the stupidest thing they possibly could have done and something that wouldn't even surprise me. But it drives me nuts when they do stuff like that.
And I completely agree. I try not to let my own fantasy booking disappoint me when WWE's booking doesn't live up to it. But the problem is when there's just so much potential and there's not even an attempt to reach it. That's what I think the case was here.
It's just a lack of follow through.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens a lot with WWE is like they'll give you something, they'll dangle a carrot, and then they'll just let the carrot sit there and rot. So,
Yep.
I don't know. That's just me. All right, let's get to some news before we wrap up here.
I got a big one. Breaking news as we're recording this now. I just saw it.
Breaking news alert. Go ahead.
Bobby Fish is all elite.
Whoa.
Just announced, officially signed to the company. He is all elite.
That man must have seriously turned around on his vaccination thoughts.
So apparently there has been some counterclaims about what his leanings, let's just say, that he may have gotten lumped in with some people that he shouldn't have been. I don't know the guy. I'm not going to comment on it. Feels a little convenient, and I think he's got to be thanking his lucky stars. He knows Adam Cole, but I'm always happy to see someone get work, and I'm willing to give it a shot. But the first case of me hearing a story, I'm done with him again.
I mean, I was almost a little surprised that he didn't participate. I guess, he did get the shit kicked out of him, but he didn't participate in Top Team's beatdown because he is another like shoot MMA guy like Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page are. So I don't know. I don't think he would have been in Men of the Year, but like I thought he would have been cool with Top Team, at least in that very specific instance.
For a company that is so stable heavy, I have no idea where you could put him right now. I don't see him joining the elite no matter what happens with him and Cole. He just doesn't fit. And I don't know a unit that suits his style right now. But hey, I'm open to it.
The best thing we're gonna get between him and Cole, I think, is a BTE joke.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, thank you for that breaking news, James. First breaking news ever coming through on the pod. That's pretty cool. I know it's not gonna be breaking news when you hear this, but deal with it. Anyway, so we had a couple of comments earlier today from Mark Henry and Bully Ray on the Busted Open podcast, and I apologize for not looking at the screen anymore, but I just want to make sure I have this right. Mark Henry and Bully Ray were discussing how current wrestlers are, quote, weak and soft and don't deserve to be in the business because they aren't bullied anymore by the older wrestlers in order to, I guess, harden them up. And I don't know, it just seems like a very antiquated thing to say, especially from a guy like Mark Henry, who's in a very progressive locker room now in AEW. James, you're the one who brought this story to our attention. What did you think of it? And what is this nonsense?
Shocking. Bully Ray says something controversial. We've known about Bully's past, being a bully. It's nothing new. Bully Ray, Bubba Ray Dudley, for those who aren't, 100% on that. This story was about a former member of the WWE roster from La Resistance. His name was Rene Dupree, who, when he was with WWE, he signed at either 18 or 19 years old. And he was, at the time, the youngest person ever signed to a WWE contract. Rene had retold this story a month or so ago about Bully physically abusing him, both in ring and outside the ring. And for Bully to just talk about it so nonchalantly is, I don't want to say surprising because it's not, but it's ballsy. It's ballsy to think, yeah, people are going to relate to this, or if they don't relate to it, they're part of the problem. But again, if you're that type of person, you don't really care what people have to say in the first place. And I guess the bigger story is Mark Henry, but Mark I don't think he's ever said anything to this level before, but you know, he definitely has shown that he has an old school mindset to a lot of things. And I don't know. You hit the nail on the head about AEW being a way more progressive locker room than WWE was, or at the very least, you know, was a long time ago. But even like this week, Bryan Danielson was cutting an interview where he said, "Oh yeah, it's so different, this locker room. It's so much like there's no drinking. There is a lot more fun. There's a lot more open-mindedness." And to then immediately be followed by this Mark Henry story, not great timing. But I don't know. I don't think Mark is important enough to AEW that it's going to cause any trouble for anybody. Maybe it'll cause some trouble for himself, but again, he just sort of sounds like an old man shouting at the clouds right now. So maybe people aren't going to care either way.
Yeah. I hope Max Caster references this in his next rap.
Well, you want to get suspended again?
I mean, if he gets suspended for mentioning the messed up thing Mark Henry said, you know, I think that shows a problem.
Yep.
AEW, but you know, it's like, what else do you say about this besides "Okay, Boomer"? You know, like, it's just so backwards, and like, even when you break down their logic and you try to understand where they're coming from, like the math just doesn't add up. Like, man, like picking on your coworkers and, you know, like fucking with them and like badly fucking with them, it doesn't make you more of a man, right? Doesn't that just show you're insecure? Like, if you really think about it, you know? So I don't know. It's a dumb thing, and I'm not against like pranks. Not to bring up other dark stuff, but on the Plane Ride from Hell, Dark Side of the Ring episode, you know, when they were like, "Oh, Mr. Perfect was this crazy, he was this notorious prankster. He was so crazy. Those are the craziest pranks." The prank he did was he put shaving cream on someone's head and then splatted it, and it's like, yeah, he was this mastermind prankster. Meanwhile, the pranks that other people were pulling on that plane ride were, you know, some of them were crimes. So, you know, like, I'm okay with the Mr. Perfect's level of pranks, you know, like that's fine. You can prank your friends, like, but that's the key thing, is you can prank the people you're cool with. Like, that's fine. Like, you can't do that to just anyone. You can't make someone that's not how you welcome someone who you don't know to a new environment. Like, it's so dumb and it's so outdated. And there are going to be people who agree with what they're saying or have no problems with it. And you know what? More power to them. Enjoy passing out at the bar, talking to your friends.
Enjoy being miserable.
Yeah, enjoy hitting your wife in a few years. Like, oh, what the fuck?
Woo. All right, I'm getting out of this segment before we say something we can't come back from. And this is edited, but okay. Well, I think maybe I could see Tony Khan go talking to Mark Henry, but I don't think there's going to be any repercussions outside of that. That's pretty much all I think is going to happen. All right, moving on to something a little happier. Women of Wrestling will be returning to TV soon. Tessa Blanchard appears to be their top star. AJ Mendez, formerly known as AJ Lee, aka wife of CM Punk, will be on commentary, and it appears as well that the show will be carried on local CBS affiliates, meaning they'll be on network television. James, once again, you brought this to us. You seem pretty excited about it, so let's hear it.
Like Danny, I am a big fan of women's wrestling, and I am always down for more opportunities for women wrestlers in the industry to have an opportunity. WoW is a company that's been around for a while, and this relaunch it's kind of a big deal. You know, they're doing their best to rebrand. They're doing their best to get attention. Tessa Blanchard is a very controversial figure in wrestling right now. For those who are uninformed, she is the first woman to win a men's heavyweight championship in a major wrestling company. She's a former Impact heavyweight champion, and she is the daughter of Tully Blanchard, currently in AEW. Tessa is, from an in-ring standpoint, one of the better workers today, and she has so much upside as a worker. That said, she had two controversies in a row. She had been accused of racism and bullying in essentially every locker room she's ever been a part of. And despite Impact willing to give her a chance and, you know, help rehab her image, and still made her their world champion, when the pandemic hit, they just asked her to cut some promos to explain her absence. I don't know if they intended on her dropping the Impact title, but at the very least, they just wanted her to cut some promos for them to, you know, explain why their champion isn't on TV. She refused and basically held the title hostage. And this is not storyline, this is legit. And the company rightfully took issue with it, stripped her of the title, and she was released. She has not been seen in any major since. She had a small history with WWE, being in their Mae Young Classic prior to this Impact debacle, and she had appeared at All In, the sort of like ground zero for what would eventually become AEW. But Tony Schiavone has gone on record saying if we wanted her, she'd be here. And WWE hasn't said anything, but it was clear that that bridge was burnt as well. And then her actions with Impact just sort of killed it from there. It's a shame to see so much talent go to waste, but she made her bed and she had a lay in it. Her being the center of WoW is big for them, but she was already a member of the old WoW roster, and she was kicked out of that roster as well. So for her sake, I hope she has matured as a person. I hope whatever wrongdoing she has been accused of, she has either been able to make amends with those people or at the very least learn from her mistakes. But no signs have shown that yet, but time will tell. As far as AJ Mendez, that is, in my opinion, the much bigger story. It's AJ's return to wrestling after, I believe, 6 years. And while we should not expect her as a wrestler, she will be their commentator. She will be their play-by-play announcer. It's just great to see her back in this industry that she loved. I am surprised it's WoW. I'm shocked that she didn't follow her husband, but maybe that was intentional. Maybe she didn't want to feel like she was dependent on Punk's success. So I wish her nothing but the best. I wish WoW nothing but the best. And we'll see about Tessa.
I don't know about you, Danny, not knowing too much about WoW previously. I knew some of that Tessa Blanchard storyline, but I think for me, like James said, the most exciting thing is AJ Mendez coming back to wrestling. Yeah, I imagine she'd do color instead of play-by-play, but you know, I can understand her going here to help grow what I imagine, well, is maybe not a women-run company, but it's a company for women, and I can see why she would want to do that over, you know, just following Punk and going to AEW. Danny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the main reason, I think she would go to AEW if she was making an in-ring return, but I think since she is just doing commentary, I think that's why she's a part of it. But it's a big deal. But I'm excited for it. I'm not like crazy excited for it because it's just commentary, but this is her first foot back in the door, and I just feel like it'll eventually lead to her getting the itch to wrestle again. So, you know, that would be fantastic.
No, isn't she hurt? Can she not get back in the ring?
So AJ retired from in-ring work when she left WWE because, according to her husband in a somewhat recent interview, her spine is pretty messed up.
I
Now,
didn't know that.
yeah, again, this is wrestling, and we have seen people return from injury that we never expected to. But Punk himself said, I want to say within the last month or so, not to expect that. And he himself said, I am quote unquote killing that rumor right now. Uh, I'd be happy to see that one day if she's physically capable. But again, for me, just to see AJ back in the wrestling world is a big deal. And the truth is, I thought AJ was a good wrestler, but I don't think she was the best in-ring worker. I think her talent was definitely in her promo work, her character work, and what she could do on the mic. So maybe she's trying to get the mic rust off in WoW, and then maybe she'll find her way to AEW, or maybe she just believes in this. Yeah, she could be a manager, like you said, Danny. Maybe keep her away from Punk, but yeah.
Although I do think for AJ's time, she was the best female wrestler at that time because there was no one besides. Well, yeah, when Beth Phoenix retired, that's when AJ rose to like prominence. So, and that was only like a 2-year span before Paige came in. So, but still for that time, she was like, I think, the best in-ring worker. But I don't think her in-ring work holds up to like the women we do have now.
Yeah.
But she could still hold her own. But as far as the Tessa stuff, like I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's a good move, but someone was gonna do it, of course.
Yeah.
Like she's a big deal. And like you said, it's a shame. It's a lot of wasted talent. I might as well go for back-to-back mess up jokes. Bully Ray could just be your manager. Screw it. Right? That's clearly what he likes in talent. So.
Yep. Yeah. Oh boy.
Danny's gonna get us in trouble this episode. We have one rule: it's don't get us canceled.
These aren't cancel-worthy things.
No, but you're getting close.
I think he's saying bad people belong together, and I think that's a sentiment we could all agree with.
Fair play.
See, James gets it.
I get you, bud. I get you.
As long as we have James on the show to balance it out, it's fine. Just wait till I host.
Oh no!
Oh god, yeah. Danny wants to host next week, and it's going to be just pure chaos. Yeah, be sure to tune in to watch us all just completely lose our jobs and melt down. Anyway, one last bit of news before we wrap up here. Christopher Daniels has been seen wrestling in Impact. I know we're all very excited to see CD back, kind of back home in Impact. He was there for a really long time. I don't know if this is a retirement tour or what, but I'm glad he's back wrestling.
I would love to see Daniels maybe win the X Division title. I think he'd be a good guy to take the title off Josh Alexander.
Good call.
Because it feels like Josh is going to go for the heavyweight title soon. I know Josh is using Plan C, which in Impact is when you trade the X Division title in for a shot at the world title. But either way, even if he doesn't take the title off Josh, I think him returning to the X Division would be good if this is in fact his retirement tour. But selfishly, I don't think this will ever happen, but I think it'd be great to see CD go for the world title because despite his long tenure in TNA and then Impact, he was never their champion. And I don't see Impact putting their title on a third AEW guy in a row, but I mean, he's a name, and I don't think Impact runs away from names.
I think if I like your idea about him perhaps winning the X Division title, but I think if he does go after their heavyweight championship, I think it's got to be after Christian drops it to somebody, and it's got to be a younger Impact guy that CD can help put over. So I feel like that's something he would want to do, and that's just good booking.
Yeah, I think it's just cool. It's nice that he's back, and he like you said, he's kind of back home, and I think it was cool. He could just wrestle there for a while, not on AEW, so that when he does show up, it's like it almost feels like a big return again and a big deal. But I don't really have much else to add about it. It's just really cool. And, like, what's that saying? If you don't have anything messed up to say, don't say anything at all. So I don't got anything left to say.
Yeah, something like that, right? He was pretty close. All right. Well, I think that about wraps things up for us today, whenever you're watching this. I need to stop using times when we're doing this. I digress. That about wraps things up for us. I'm Nick Cummings for James Gisante and Danny Hernandez. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check us out on all our social medias. Thanks, James, for really supporting me there.
I didn't say anything. I'm just, I'm like a disappointed dad in the corner, or like, I don't know, the older brother who's just sad.
It's 1:35 in the morning. Cut me some slack.
He just said he wasn't going to use timers anymore. He just said it, guys. You see what you're doing to him? Come on. Hit the like button, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. Goodbye and good night.
Mark It Down Podcast, Mark It Down Pod on Instagram, Mark It Down _pod on Twitter, and search on Facebook, Mark It Down Podcast. Like I said before, I'm Nick Cummings. That's a very disappointed James Gisante. Danny Hernandez. Tune in next week where Danny tries to completely ruin the podcast. So long, everybody.